Hey, so check this out. I've been doing some research, just like checking out the history behind Washington State, and those that don't know me, I like knowledge. So I get up and I read books like this from Babylon to Timbuktu. I already read it, but you have to kind of go over it again and study it because there's so much meat up in there. So I'm just like tracing the history of, the Black Jew and the Black Hebrew from Africa to America and even to Washington State. So, I was doing some research and I didn't know that Washington State originally was founded for people who were non-Caucasian. For instance, they passed a law like in 1850, America saying that if you are not Caucasian, you you can't have no property, you can't settle nowhere in America. The only place that you can go beyond the Columbia River was Washington State, which was not Washington State at the time. It was considered Oregon property, but you had to go way up north, and that's how the Northwest got started. And that's also why you have so many diverse cultures up here, because the Filipinos, the Asians, the Spanish, everyone ended up having to come up here because it was the only place back in America that allow you to have settlements and have property and have businesses in America without being a Caucasian. And not only that, did you know that the first city was Tumwater, Centralia, which later we end up calling Olympia, was founded by a black man named, get this, George W. Bush. He was a mixed man. His father was an Indian. He was a black man from India, and his mom was an Irish European from America, but he was looked kind of like Obama. And he led this settlement with a bunch of Irish white men that followed him to Portland, Oregon. That's why they wanted to go settle. But because they made this law that black people can't settle in Oregon, that he had to go way up in the corner in the boondocks. And that's how the Northwest got started. So he had all the money. So even though he was the only black person in that group, he had the money. So all the white people followed him up to Washington State, and they later started Tumwater. Tumwater was the first city that was called a city in Washington State, and it was founded. They tell you it's founded by a black man. Depends on what you read. Sometimes they say it was Simon, some white guy named Simon, who was an Irish guy that was a friend of his. But if you look at it, he paid all them guys. The black dude paid everybody. That's why they follow him. What white man group of white people gonna follow a black man up to a place that ain't nobody really conquered yet because it's a bunch of trees because he's black? They follow him because if you study and read, they say they respected him. He was a businessman. He had hotels, he had properties, he had restaurants, all type of things. And this is why our capital is called Olympia. So that property, that settlement that his family owns, which is a black man, that was founded by a black man. And ironically, they end up calling it Washington State. They say it's because of the first president, but you do the math. Also, the first people who lived up in Seattle was the first black family was by the name of a man named William Gross. The CD, he owned property right off of Madison. He had a hotel, a ranch, he had a boat, he had a mining company, he had all type of shit. And he was known for giving a lot of people jobs. That's why at the same time, remember the Denny Party, trying to say the Nordstrom family and Henry Yesler, all those cats, the white cats who they first came to Washington State. They was on Alki Beach. That's where they first started. And they heard about what was going on over on the other side. It was better location. So that's when they moved over there. But if you notice, it was already black people living there. Look up William Gross. He was the richest black man in Washington at that time. And he hired all type of people, people that was cutting down trees, working for Henry Yesler that cut down trees and sent it down Puget Sound. Well, all those people lived in the CD. They were there first because Henry Yesler and their party didn't come across the water to the CD until like 1953, after they had already been over there and already established that as the black community, which is why if you look at the Central District, that's why they call it First Capitol Hill, because it is the first community in Seattle, which was all black people. Go do your research, man. Gentrification is a motherfucker. So this state is unique because it's exactly what God wanted. It's exactly what Dr. King talked about when he said he'd been to the mountaintop. The mountaintop that we call Washington State was really made as a discrimination for people who were not white. This is the only place they were allowed to come and look at it. It's prosperous now. It's a beautiful thing because what they meant for our harm is turned for our good, because now we got all these cultures up here and we all mess with each other and we all getting along with each other. Not everybody, but what I'm saying is that there's an experiment going on up here that what they meant for harm, that this is the blueprint to what God wanted. This is what Dr. King talked about when he said he'd been to the mountaintop, seeing the glory to come of the Lord, and white men, black men, Jews and Gentiles get together and seeing that old Negro spiritual, which he didn't understand was called hip hop, because that's the only Negro spiritual that's uniting all the different races. And this is an experiment right now that's prophetic, and people don't even realize it. So when you look at Washington State, I've been around, there is no place that look identical to Washington State. You may go to places like California, there's pockets of it like that, and Houston, but for the most part, not like this, where we're all by each other, man. That's why you got Chinatown, you got the Asians, you got the Spanish. We're all by each other because they forced us to come live here because we wasn't accepted in a lot of other places. So that's why Washington State is so democratic, because we all came here as immigrants. We all came here because they didn't want to fuck with us. So now you understand why our capital was named at that location, who was founded by a black man who was forced to go there because they wouldn't let him come to Oregon. And it's Olympia, which means the city of the gods. You know, so this city is very unique. And that's ironic that they say that, because this is what God's plan is. All these people that's up here, how we're 12, that just represents the 12 tribes, not just the 12th man. That's who we are. We are the blueprint of what the future is like. That's how you deal with all the discrimination and bullshit. How you gonna discriminate against each other when we all came here because we discriminated against the country that we're supposed to be from? I'm just saying. So we're going to talk about some Black History Month. Talk about the black man who founded this location because he was not allowed to be nowhere else and have property nowhere else. But they don't want to tell y'all that. Don't quote me on it. Go Google it. That's all I'm giving you for today. Dig that. Top of the morning to you.